I'm now drilling all the lightning holes on the spar webs. I'm using a standard hole cutter, fly cutter for the drill press. It's set at the lowest speed for this drill press. I had it set up for 250 RPM. I'm using a sort of a sub table here to clamp it down to. So I first have drilled some number 20 holes in here as a sort of as a starting point for the drill bit. And I'm going to first get the drill bit centered over. Start it in slightly, clamp it down. Now I'll clamp in the spar web itself. We'll drips. Make sure nothing is hitting anything. And go ahead and cut it out. Feeding it very slowly. And then continue this process for the rest of the holes. Makes a fairly clean hole. You simply need to do some deburring around the edge. And I typically use a Scotch-Brite wheel on the drill press to deburr these center holes, and it comes out very well. You can also use a manual edge deburring bit on this, or Scotch-Brite pads, or whatever you may want to use. What I'm going to show here is how I go about drilling the spacer blocks that go onto the main spar where the rib attach angle is attached to. And so what I've done is I've already gone ahead and cut all the pieces. I cut these on the chop saw with a metal cutting blade. And I have this jig that I've set up. And this jig allows me to place the spacers here. And it's set up so it's drilling right in the center of these two. And I can now hold them in position so I can now match drill them. Have it set up so I can drill one end of it. There'll be a total of 3 holes on these. I can flip it around, drill the other one. And then I have a mark set up here where I can pull it over, align it on that mark, and I'll drill the center one. Basically, I'll mark these, and I typically mark them all. And what I'll typically do is have a number on them. So I'll mark it as number 1A, 1B, and being in this orientation, so then I'll know to make sure they're all matched up when I put them onto the spar. So I'm going to go ahead and drill a couple of the holes and put them into place here. Do it tight against the edge stop. Drill one set of holes. And now I can turn it around, place it in here, and drill the other set of holes. What I typically like to do to make sure I'm keeping it aligned is I'm going to drop a drill bit in here to keep it perfectly aligned for all the holes. So I'm going to go ahead and drill the second set of holes. And then I'm going to slide it over to this line, put the drill bit in here just to make sure I'm properly aligned. And then we'll drill the center hole. So now I have all 3 holes drilled, and I can go and place it onto the spar itself, and then eventually attach the ribs. And I'll show that part of it next. Okay, we're now here drilling the rib attach angles that go onto the front spar. So what I have done is I've taken a bunch of aluminum, 032 aluminum, that was 5/8, 5/8, and a 1/16 for the bend allowance. So it would be 21/16 inch wide. I cut this into strips and then bend it to 90 degrees on my brake. And now what I've done is I've set up this jig to make it very simple to pre-drill all the holes I need to attach to my ribs. I could have marked the center line, center punched it, and drilled it out, but I find this easier. I've got it set up so it's perfectly in the center, and what I've done is I've marked several positions on here. One at the for the first rivet for the second, third, fourth, fifth, and the sixth rivet. So I can simply put it in here, slide it through, and drill them. And they're all very close or almost exactly the same. More for aesthetics purposes than anything else. So let me show you what I'm doing there. We've got the drill press set at about 2,000 RPMs. So we put them in, simply drill. I'm drilling undersized with an under 40 drill bit. And you see the holes down here perfectly centered. This is simply a piece of 3/4 inch MDF, a little piece of 3/8 MDF on the top that set back a little bit to handle the bend, and then this simply is a slot in there. Should have made the slot a little bit looser, but as I start pushing these through, it's going to start sanding it out a little bit because it's a little hard to push at one point in the center. So now on the next step, I'll show a little later as I drill some of the other holes.